not even considered in the race, despite the fact that he had such good form tying in with Samcro last year, who ran in the race as well. And Samcro was another horse who, also ran in the race. These are very, very good horses. Then you bring in Manella Endo, who obviously fell. I think that was the surprising element of the race. But Kenboy, to fight out the finish with the winner, whose jockey we're going to talk to now, it was just an unbelievable race. And Mellon stepping up to 3 miles and nearly pulling it off. It had so much going on, presenting Percy struggling. And it was basically the race of the Christmas, and an unbelievable finish. And it should be noted that someone very lucky out there backed the winner at 200 to 1 in the closing stages.
All right, wow, well, whoever that is, very wise. But rather than, talk about it, let's show it. This is the finale to the Savills Chase at Leopardstown on December the 28th. It is one of the greatest finishes from the depths of hell. This is Phil Healy-esque. Watch it.
Plutar is gaining on them in third, and then Allaho as they come down to the final fence, and wrestling back the lead is Kenboy, previous winner from Mellon, and on the outside is Plutar as they come away from the final fence. It's Kenboy with digging back in on the far side. Mellon, Plutar is just in behind them in third. It's Kenboy, Mellon and Plutar as they go towards the line. Kenboy, Plutar still coming on the near side and has lifted it in the last ride. Plutar and Darragh O'Keefe have robbed Kenboy and Mellon. Long way clear of Allaho in a television goal finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Darragh O'Keefe, good afternoon to you. How are you?
Hi lads, how are you going?
How does that feel and sound to watch it back?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's still hard to believe that it actually did happen, but no, it was brilliant, and it was a great day, and I was just very grateful to be given the opportunity, really. Well,
the commentary there, I just watched it back before we came on, just as the final 4 horses round the last bend, the commentator goes, it's looking great for Willie Mullins at the moment, because at that stage it was the first 3. And before that, even you go back further, I think you were 8, 9 lengths behind the leaders at one point as well. So what do you remember from the race before we even talk about the finish?
The race, I suppose, we knew it was probably going to be a strongly run race. There was going to be plenty pace in it, and there certainly was. And my Henry de Bromhead's instruction was just really to follow away, get into a good rhythm, and see what happens, and ride him to stay. And I suppose some people doubted would he stay or not, because it was his second run trying the trip. But I think this time round he was a couple of years older, and he was obviously after developing a lot, and the race was as fast as I ever went anyway. We for 3 miles we were going a very strong gallop, and just the way the race planned out and stuff, we got into a good rhythm, and I suppose we'd kind of the right horses around me as well, that I suppose that were all the hype was about before the race. I know Mellon and Kenboy were probably further in front of us, but at the end of the day I was happy enough kind of the whole way around, kind of where I was, and just kind of it was a very good finish, and we're delighted that we came out the right side of it.
We talked there about Manella Endo falling. Again, watching back on it, you actually disappear from view in the back because it looks like you have to break stride and kind of go around. Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was really we kind of just going down to the fence. Kind of Rachel was she was kind of just in front of me and kind of outside me, but I was kind of following Paul Town and down the inside, so I was lucky enough. And as you said, when that happened, I was able to move left and stay out of trouble. I actually jumped that fence really well, but from there on in, and obviously I wasn't aware that Delta work had gone as well, so it was lucky that we were able to avoid it anyway.
And when that happens, so it didn't fall right in front of you, but it kind of falls over to your right side, so you do actually have to change course. Is that right?
Yeah, I kind of had to then move in a bit, but I suppose it would have been more serious for the horse and rider that were kind of directly behind Rachel. So I was lucky enough in the sense where I was, and I suppose you kind of, when that happens and you get over it, you're able to avoid it. You try not to, there's plenty of things happening in front of you, so you try not to best to think of it.
Right, and when the gap opens up like that in a race where the quality of the horses is so high, there's a bit of self-confidence and work done for you not to think, geez, I need to go with these?
No, I suppose, and again, going back to the fact that that my horse was stepping up to, 3 miles in that open company. I was happy enough just to follow away and see, and just get into a good rhythm and ride him to come home. And when them 2 incidents did happen, as I said, we were lucky enough to avoid them, so we were just kind of letting the race develop in front of us. And as you said, the main thing was just to ride our lad to come home.
Okay, and so as I said, from the depths of hell is that famous footage of Ireland's fastest woman, Phil Healy, in a college's race where she comes from nowhere. I know it's not quite nowhere in that you're on the screen, but like a finish like that where you claw all that back, when do you actually think you've got it? When do you feel like, actually, I'm going to get these?
I suppose when we jumped to second last, when I kind of got down and gave my lad a shove, I know I had a bit of ground to make up, but when I did get down and give him a shove, he did pick up. And even going down to the last, I was hoping that, I knew I kind of needed it. I was hoping that I get a good jump, but there was no stride there, so I kind of sat up. But at the back of that, when I really threw everything at him, he picked up, and his head was on the floor, and he was giving it everything he had. But saying that, now I was hoping the line would get further away every stride I was taking, because I know there's a long run from the final fence, but you never really know when you get there until you do get there. But I suppose kind of when I knew that I kind of got past Mellon, and I could see in front of me that Kemboy was doing everything he could, but thankfully, as you said, the line just came in time. And
what's that feeling like, that bit where you catch them just on the line and everything has gone right for you?
It's unbelievable, especially the race that it was. Kind of like after the line, you just couldn't believe it, that this isn't just an ordinary race that's a handicap or anything. It's a grade 1, and it's, as you said, it was probably, it is as big as race there is at Christmas and stuff. So it was, reality didn't really sink in until I actually just, the race was over. And when I was up in his back, even after passing the line, I was just so overwhelmed by it that it's after happening, and tis a massive feeling, and it's unbelievable, really.
Was it a race, Darragh, that you reflected on with a great deal of satisfaction, because you were on a horse, as you mentioned, who wasn't considered a certain stayer, which was perfectly fair. It looked as deep a renewal of the race as there has ever been, and not only that, but you were kind of, I will say, off the back of the second last, as you mentioned, you were chasing 2 horses. Kemboy, who looked like he'd gone so hard that he'd have to stop at some stage, and Mellon, who himself was probably almost as much of a doubtful stayer as you were. Was all this in your head, or were you just like trying to... I know you're not trying to ask your horse too early as well, just in case you get there too soon. So what was going into your head coming, I suppose, between the third and the second last?
I jumped to third last really well, and I could see Paul Townend was kind of in front of me, and the 2 Mellon and Kemboy, they did get away from us a bit, but I suppose kind of Mellon he didn't get a fluency jump at the second last. Kemboy probably jumped it better than he did, so that probably slowed him a bit down, and I had winged the second last. But at the same time, I think that if I didn't jump the second last the way I did, I don't know if we'd have got to the line in time, but as we jumped the second last, and kind of when I kind of got past Paul Townend, I knew that he didn't look like he'd any more to offer, so I knew that obviously the danger was definitely going to be in front of me. But once I got my lad rolling and stuff, even going down to the last, I know there wasn't much of a stride there, but he didn't lose much momentum, and at the back of it, as I said just beforehand, when I did get really stuck into him, he put his head down, and he picked up rightly to the line, so he did.
And it must feel like I don't know, like falling in love for the first time or something when you ride in a race like that. As you say, you've never gone as hard over 3 miles. You're just an up and coming jockey, as you said with Don McLean in the Times, in the article afterwards. You had no inkling you were going to get a ride in the race. You just went through the declarations, and then you take all that in. Maybe there's not an awful lot of pressure on you because the horse isn't he's not a short price. But for everything to fall into place as it did, for a young jockey, you must be in dreamland thinking what my future could hold if things go well.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't really want to think about what could happen if about them things. I was more focused on the race and seeing, and obviously I watched back his runs and obviously spoke to Rachel and stuff on the way up about him, and she told me everything about him and that he was a good spin, and I suppose I wasn't really thinking about the future or anything. It was just that race, and you know, it was my first ride in a Grade 1, so just I didn't want to put pressure on myself. I was just, I suppose, I was so excited that I was given the opportunity by Henry de Bromhead and Cheveley Park, you know, just to, I know he wasn't a sharp price, but like as I said to a few people afterwards, like the thing is that if he did stay, he was going to have a big chance, because you know his form is very good over 2 miles, and you know he ran very well in the Ryanair last year, and you know I think Rachel said to me that she didn't think that he performed at his peak, so you know if he did stay, he was definitely going to have a big chance anyway.
How well do you know the horse?
Would say, yeah.
I'd ridden him out a couple of times at Henry's was all, and as you said, I didn't know much of an inkling that I was going riding him, but until declarations, but I had ridden him out and stuff, and you know I know the horse from racing, obviously, like running in all them big races, so it's you know I knew the horse, and you know it was brilliant to get on him.
That's interesting too, that the declarations come out and you see your name beside it. Like at that point, it's a big vote of confidence in you and the work you've been doing recently.
Yes, and I suppose like it's just again it's going back to, you know, have like obviously Henry and Cheveley Park having the confidence to put me up in, like, because I hadn't ridden in a Grade 1 before, and you know, like on a Plutard, as we said, I know questions were going to be asked about whether he stayed or not, but he was still a very high class horse, and you know it was an unreal feeling, really. I remember looking down at declaration on Saturday to see how many rides I had, and then we came on to the Savills Chase, and I see myself down for a Plutard. It was just unbelievable to see my name down beside him, you know.
Yeah, it's funny that they didn't actually chat to you beforehand and say, here, listen, we're putting you on this.
Yeah, I suppose, but like you know, I suppose, you know, it was a good surprise to get, and I suppose they didn't want to be, you know, putting a lot of pressure on or anything like that. They were just going to let it happen and see. You know, I suppose I had ridden him out a couple of times, so you know, but I'd no inkling that I was going to be riding him or that it was definite or anything. So I was just, as you said, it was unreal to see my name beside his.
And then I guess it's interesting too that, like, you know, you can see in retrospect that they obviously don't want to burden you with any pressure or too much by way of instruction. It's like, look, get in the rhythm, see where it goes. It sounds like the instructions were relatively straightforward as well.
Yes, they were. I gave the saddle to Henry or whatever, and you know, we discussed, and we knew that, like, he had said to me that Rachel was going to be very forward, and that's when I kind of knew when I jumped off that, like Rachel kind of said before, that she was going to be very positive, and she was only a few lengths in front of me. That, you know, Kemboy was obviously gone on, so I knew the gallop was very strong, and you know, the main thing was just get into a good rhythm and you know, ride him to come home and see what happens.
Darragh, I found in life that whenever there's a big occasion and you're preparing for something that, you know, there's going to be attention on, I never actually really get nervous until people ask me, particularly my mum, are you nervous? And it's at that point I'm like, what, am I supposed to be? What is this a big deal? What's going on here? Were you nervous in advance of this at all? Or was it kind of like, look, this is just the same as anything? Because, you know, it's, as you said, it's your first.
I suppose I was like, definitely I was, you know, I suppose I was definitely excited, and I was nervous, I suppose. Like, just I was hoping everything would go right, and you know, that the race would work out the way we wanted it to. And you know, I suppose that, like, every race, you know, like especially dim Grade 1s, you should feel a bit of nerves, and you know that I suppose like the dim races definitely feel more special than anything else. But I suppose like at the moment in time, I was kind of at a couple of rides before it, which was no harm, so I didn't have much time to think of it. And before I realised I was on his back at the start, and you know, we jumped off. I suppose the nerves kind of went out the window. You were riding in the race then, so no, I definitely was nervous, but I think having a couple of rides before it and stuff, it was no harm, just that I wasn't thinking about it as much.
And even the running of the race, it's not like, you know, you're a front runner and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hang on a second here, I remember the chance of it. Your head is down until the very end, where you're like, I've got to get up with every sinew straining. There's no chance to kind of, oh, look, we're about to win here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as you said, like even turning in for home, there wasn't much. I wasn't thinking of much at that stage. Only, you know, driving them, and you know, obviously the other two were I'd ground to make up, and I was just hoping that, you know, the gallop was so strong that like even in the race, the pace we went, I didn't think that the front two, the mids like Mellon and Kemby, would be still there towards the end, but in fairness, they were right there, and Mellon went to the lead and Kemby took it off him, and they were swapping and changing, but they were still the two that dominated the finish with me, so it was it was brilliant.
What was the feel of him like relative to what you've ridden before there?
Oh, he was, he's hugely different. Just the way, I suppose, he's a laid back kind of a horse. He's not free, or he's a very smooth horse to ride. But you kind of knew the way he's jumping and stuff, like, and the way he was bringing me along in the race. I've never got a feeling off it anyway, off any other horse. So it was, I knew the difference straight away.
I suppose maybe I didn't phrase the question the way I wanted to earlier. Just in terms of after the race and taking in the achievement that has happened, and like, let's be honest, this is a game changer. You're riding a Grade 1, the race that took everyone's breath away over the Christmas, and I'm not sure if anything could have gone better for you in the race. Just the way you performed. Is it about kind of staying grounded now? I know you've had Gary Cribben on before, your agent, and I imagine he's a very good guide for you. But you've come an awful long way in a short space of time, and I guess problem now is that you can start thinking that this is easy when obviously it isn't.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I suppose I kind of know since I kind of, when I had my claim, I was flying, but when I kind of lost it, things slow down very quickly. But I suppose that was a good indicator to what the game is really about. And, as you mentioned, like, Gary Cribben is my agent, and he's worked tremendous for me since I started. And, even when I did lose my claim, he said that, it's gonna be tougher and things, but just, just keep your head down, and that's all you can do. And no, definitely staying grounded, is the way to be, because in this game, you don't know what's around the corner, and, you're only one fall away or one ride away from things going wrong. So, you have to stay grounded, and obviously just hope that you get good opportunities.
What's your feeling like now in terms of coming through at a time when there was, I suppose, a changing of the guard with Geraghty and Ruby and, McCoy before them, signing off? Davy Russell is kind of coming to the end of his career, I suppose, at this stage, and you have these young jockeys coming through. Like, I guess, who are the ones that you looked up to?
Geraghty was, I used to love watching him as a child, and obviously AP McCoy, they were the two that I just really looked up to. And, obviously you had Ruby as well, his, all them top lads you just love watching around Cheltenham and everywhere really. But, they were just wonderful jockeys growing up as a kid, winning all the big races. But, there was loads of jockeys, and I suppose, Tony McCoy, obviously the way he was obviously champion jockey on multiple occasions, just seeing that growing up and the dedication and the commitment he had, and how hungry he was, I suppose they were the kind of fellas, everyone really was who I looked up to.
They're all different styles. They're all slightly different styles, and they're all kind of different characters as well. Do you try and take a little bit as an up-and-comer from what they've all done? Do you listen to what they say and kind of take a little bit from it, or is there any of them as individuals who you kind of think that's the career path that I'd like to follow?
I suppose really it depends. It depends kind of where the opportunities unfold for you. I suppose like when you look at AP McCoy, he was in England kind of, and he was 20 times champion jockey, and then you would, Ruby and Barry that were obviously champion as well, but they kind of, they were swapping and changing between Ireland or England, riding the best here and the best in England. So I suppose it's really where your opportunities are. But it was brilliant to see them lads coming up, and I tried to take a bit from what they did, and what the way they rode and how they went about things, I suppose.
You are from a place that is like absolutely, and it's kind of almost excused the pun, steeped in national hunt history.
Yeah, like it's a golden era, I suppose, as a young jockey now, to look back at all the jockeys that were mentioned, like to be around when they were, is incredible really, because I think you'll struggle to get a better era really, that they were so good, and they were the best.
In terms of Doneraile and the surrounds, Was it obvious from like an early stage that this was something that, because you're not far from, you know, real proper national hunt heartland there, and if you wanted to ride horses, you were probably coming from the right part of Ireland anyway.
Yeah, definitely. You know, my family were surrounded with horses, and you know they had them at home and stuff. And you know, from an early age, I suppose I got my own ponies, and you know I developed it there, and you know I got the bug, and you know they didn't force me to do it or anything, you know, but I chose it from an early age by obviously watching, you know, the top jockeys that we mentioned, you know, seeing them on TV. I was saying that I wanted to hopefully be them someday, you know.
Even as a kid?
Yeah, definitely. Like I remember like, you know, watching all the big festivals, and I used to watch racing an awful lot, and you know, when I'd go off on my own ponies, then I'd be thinking I was Ruby winning on Kate on a Gold Cup, or you know, Barry and Sprint to Sacra or something like that. And you know, I got a great kick out of that watching them, and you know, it's brilliant now to, you know, to have hopefully a career of being a jockey.
And when you were in school, then were your young mates, were they kind of like, were they more into hurling or football, or were they like, did some of them kind of think along the same lines as yourself?
Yeah, I suppose my friends, like I'd a lot of friends with playing hurling and football, and I played a lot of it myself, and it was something that I really, really enjoyed. And you know, I suppose my friends, they would have always been talking about, you know, the All Ireland or the Munster for finals and stuff like that, and that I suppose I was going pony racing at the weekends, and they were probably going playing matches for Cork or Avondhu or something like that. So I suppose we'd kind of different lifestyles really. But in fairness, I had friends that that took great you know, sport and come and watching me racing, and you know, that had no involvement in horses, but they really enjoyed watching me, you know, that I suppose that they thought of it that, you know, this is his lifestyle, so you know, they like taking part and watching me.
So were you a good pony racer at that stage? Were you winning races?
Yeah, I had a good time of it. I rode plenty of winners, you know, and I suppose I was in with you know, a good bunch of jockeys as well that are, you know, that are well developed now, and it was brilliant to have them around as well and being watching them pony racing.
And then obviously you decide that you're going to go on. How do you go from being a pony racer into somebody who is getting through that process of riding out your claim?
I suppose like you just have to associate your, you know, I suppose when I did ride in the flat for a bit, but my weight was never going to be right. And then when I decided to become a conditional, I moved to Enda Bolger's racing yard, and you know, I think that that's the place that has developed me, and that's where I've learned everything. And I think, you know, he's been a big player. He's the man that's, you know, got me to where I am now. And I think you need to have somewhere that'll, you know, that's where you're going to be grounded properly and where you're going to be taught. And I think that's been definitely what's gotten me where I am now.
Is that straightforward enough, that process? Do you ring up Enda and say, hey, listen, I want to be a conditional, or do you have to apply? How does that actually work?
Well, I suppose like I didn't ring him up and say I want to be a, you know what I mean. He didn't see me ride or anything, so obviously I went down there first and I rode out and things like that, and he asked me what my plans were, and I said I'd like to take out my conditional license, and you know, he said fine, and you know, I worked away, and then obviously when my turn came to ride, you know, I suppose you just have to take the chances.
How long were you waiting for your first winner?
I started in Enda's in October time, and it was the following July when I rode my first winner. So you know, I had a good, but I needed that time. You know, like it just wasn't as, you know, I could jump in there and start riding straight away. I wasn't ready yet. So I think that's why Enda's was so good, that when I went there, I'd loads of time to do the schooling, and you know, he's just a master of doing things with you that will improve your riding. And you know, it's not just about riding horses. It's, you know, you get to learn how to look after them properly, and you know, the grounding there is just it's I don't think there's anywhere like it really.
So that's interesting. You arrive, and obviously you're excited because this is, you know, the start of your dream coming true, where you're going to get to be a jockey. And I presume there's a little bit of you that wants to get out there straight away and prove what you can do, while at the same time you need to be humble enough to go, actually, you know what, I probably need to learn a bit here.
Oh, definitely. And like, you know, it was, riding over jumps, there's a huge difference than riding in the flat. So I knew that, like, I suppose in the back of my head, I was always thinking, when am I going to get out there? But at the same time, like, I'd so much fun in Endas because we were schooling every day. We were going different places, school, and then like riding nice horses every day. It was, I suppose, I didn't really think of it. I knew that because he had told me that just keep working away and that you'll get your chance.
And I think you're only 18 when you have your first winner, and it's in Killarney. Is that right?
Killarney, yeah. It was my first winner, William de Burley. It was unbelievable, I suppose, to again, to who I rode it for in Mr. McManus and stuff. So it was a great starting point for my career. But it was brilliant, and it was great relief as well when I passed the line that I have my first winner rode now, because I suppose you're always looking to get your first winner, and you can, I suppose, when you do that, you can build on from there. And
they made you wait a whole 5 days before you got your second as well.
Yeah, the following 5 days I rode William de Burley in Tipperary. In a conditional chase, and he won again. And I think a day or two after that was my first kind of first outside ride after riding them winners. I had another winner, so that was a great start. But definitely I think to get out there, it was a huge help having the green and gold hoops on and stuff, and having Enda, when I suppose when people see it that you're riding for Enda, he's a real horseman and stuff, so that was a huge help as well.
I'm sure. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I kind of haven't really heard too many people talk about it. The colours are obviously, when you're a kid and you're pretending to be Ruby on Cotto or Barry Garrity winning something in particular, Barry Garrity who's won so many in those green and gold, when you put them on, is there kind of do you feel a little bit like it's a superhero?
Oh, for sure. Like, them colours are known everywhere. And I think anyone has no involvement in racing would recognise them colours. If they were looking at Grand Nationals or something, or even racing every day, them colours are out, and they're it's brilliant to wear them. And I think anyone that does, you should be definitely proud, because they're so well respected and stuff, and they're. Anyone that, as you said, watching race, and they'll very easily know who owns them colours and stuff. So definitely as a jockey, and especially for me, when I rode my first winner in them, it was great that that it was going to be highlighted that I was after riding my first winner in them colours as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the difference between winning your first Grade 1 and winning your first race, is the emotion the same? Is it completely different because you've kind of been on such a journey to get to this point, or what are they like?
I suppose my first winner was that was an unbelievable day. Definitely was, because you've worked so hard for it all your life, really, and I suppose you were just hoping that will it ever happen at once, for you, and it was great. And Killarney, it was a lovely track, but riding my first Grade 1 winner, it was just unbelievable, because I suppose that's, as a jockey growing up, your dream is to ride in them races and stuff. So definitely the Grade 1 is probably up a notch from riding my first winner. But at the same time, two of them meant so much to me.
You've obviously had great success. I think you set a record in terms of the number of winners for a conditional jockey, I think, beating Jack Kennedy's total as well. So there's a hot start for you, which is great. But you said there that even your agent had said to you, look, once you write out your claim, there's going to be a little bit of a lag here, and you need to be prepared for that. Was there any bits that you were kind of doubting yourself along the way, or is that like, actually, you know what, I'm supposed to be here, I'm on track, don't worry?
No, really. I suppose when you have your claim, I suppose your ambition is to ride it out. So, when I'd ridden it out, things definitely slowed down. They did, but at the same time, I was still riding. I was still riding. At every race meeting, kind of that was there. And the one thing about it was when I did slow down, the people that had supported me from the beginning were still giving me, they were still giving me opportunities. And that meant a lot to me, because, and I suppose I kind of lost my claim in the height of the national hunt scene as well. It was kind of November time, so, you know, the national hunt, all the good horses were out and stuff, so it was going to be tougher. But, you know, like I had people like Gary and Enda and stuff to, you know, like just chill out and you know, bide your time, and, you know, hopefully that, you know, things will improve, and, you know, just keep your head down.
How have things worked out for the kind of the young riders that you would have been riding with in the pony days from those days? How are they getting on now?
Brilliant. Like, sure, like I was riding in pony racing with Jack Kennedy. You had Ben Cohen, you had Andrew Slattery, you had Gavin Ryan, Joey Sheridan, you know, Oisin Murphy was there when I was riding. You know, so like you see how well established they are now, and I think the pony racing is a big advantage to a young person that's getting into racing. You know, it's great grounding as well. You learn loads, but you know, as you said, it was great to, even growing up now after the pony racing, to see everyone else doing so well as well.
That's an incredible list, because like I think both Ger Lyons and Dermot Wells said to me at the end of last year that they thought the young jockeys in Ireland on the flat now were the best that they've ever seen, in terms of a bunch of lads, three or four of whom that you've mentioned there, as well as Oisin Murphy, obviously, who's achieved even more across the water. And were you conscious of that at the time, that maybe this is a very good bunch, or were you kind of all just mates getting on in the youthful lives that you were having together?
I suppose, like, when you're pony racing, you know, it was kind of different, because even like even there was lads are well established now that we've mentioned that, you know, they were pony racing, but they weren't, you know, riding like 4 or 5 winners every Sunday. But there's a huge difference now, because, you know, they're well established. But you know, I suppose when I was only 10 or 11, I didn't know that, you know, these lads were going to be, like, Oisin was champion jockey or stuff, and the other lads were going to be champion apprentices. So I suppose at that age you don't really know, but they definitely stand out, that you know that they're very good riders.
I know that, like, there is a lot of regret that the point season was called off. It's just been one of them years, and, you know, things are unfortunately are going to happen. But we've spoken about how good a day out is point and that. But like, if you do go to a beach in Kerry or in Donegal, or you go to one of these pony meetings and you see these kids in action, I suppose part of the attraction of that is you may actually be looking at a star of the future. There's every chance.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And, like, you know, the pony racing, the way it's laid out, you know, you could be in, as you said, a Saturday you could be in Letterkenny in Donegal, and Sunday you could be below in Ballyfort, or that's outside Dingle, you know. So like, it was great to, you know, that my family had so much commitment to me at that time.
Well, we've spoken about that before as well, because you need your parents, like, you know, the amount of kids who were maybe good sports people when they were younger, but their parents took no interest, and that was just playing football locally. But, like, for somebody to have the parents to do that, like, you must be indebted to them.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like, you know, they've been massive to me, and, like, they did great for me when I was pony racing, and you know, still now as we speak, like, even when I first started, and then there's, like, it was only I wasn't even driving yet, so I had a full-time job, and, you know, my dad he used to get up in the morning, bring me to work. He used to go to work, and then he'd pick me back up in the evening, you know. So, like, that was a huge commitment from them as well. And, you know, obviously we had a couple of ponies at ourselves when I was pony racing, and, you know, they all cost money, and, you know, tis an expensive game to have horses and ponies for that game as well. So, you know, I owe a lot to them for sticking by me as well.
It was a good investment. When you say you were working, was that in Enda Bolger's yard? Is that what you're talking about, or did you have a separate job as well?
No, in Enda Bolger's yard. Right. So when I started there first, so when I first went in there, I wasn't driving at the time, or I had no car or anything. So like, my dad used to drop me down, and he'd go to work, and he'd do his day's work, and he'd pick me back up in the evening time. So, you know, that was 6-7 days a week, every week. And you know, even on a Sunday he could have his day off, he'd still have to bring me to work, and, you know, he'd come back down and collect me while I'd be on my lunch and bring me back down again and wait around. So, there was a huge commitment from everybody.
Well, I can only imagine the pride that they felt when you got up at the line in the biggest, and it turns out the best race in Irish racing history in terms of the quality of the field. Like, I think we probably didn't make enough of that when we started this either. How did the connection with Henry's Yard come about?
Twas my agent, Gary Cribben, had suggested that, like, just that, like, he's kind of growing the whole time, and he's getting bigger, and like, just go in there and see what happens, and you would know what could unfold. With obviously he's going to have plenty of horses there that are that could mix in races and things, and just go in and see what happens. And it was he that decided that I went in there.
Right, and look, that's you got to put yourself out there now. That's the other part of this game that we've kind of covered on the show a little bit over the last couple of years, is that the life of the jockey, part of it is having the elbows off the track as well, just to tell everybody and have the confidence, look, I can ride your horses as well as anybody, just give me a chance.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, that's all you're banking on, really. You're hoping that, like, if you don't have a big yard behind you, or you don't have owners or things like that, you're just hoping that, like Henry did with me, that to give me a chance in a big race on a high class horse. Like, that's what you're hoping of, really.
And have things changed since the Savills even? Like, is your agent getting more phone calls from people going, ooh, I saw what young O'Keefe did there, I wouldn't mind having him on board?
Well, like, as I said, I've been busy, like, even, I suppose myself, like, I think I've had since the start of the season 300 odd rides, so, like, I've been busy throughout the whole season, which is great, and I think we're just going to keep working forward and see what happens.
What's your weekend looking like?
I'm suspended tomorrow in Fairy House I got a day for the stick on Leopardstown in Leopardstown that day. So at the time I was saying, yeah, the only thing is that Chatham Street Lad runs tomorrow in the Dan Moore, so I'd won in him the last time out in Cheltenham, but he's a very good horse, and at the time in Leopardstown you were like, oh sure, you take it, but at the same time tomorrow you're going to be wondering, Jesus, I could have ridden him.
Yeah, I guess that must be great crack riding for Mick Winters as well. I know it wasn't Cheltenham as we know it, but it must have been some buzz considering the way he won and all that.
Yeah, and as you said, like, Mick Winters, he's just something else, isn't he? He's a real character, and the way he presents himself, and he's just a real character, and as you said, that was a great day, and it helped me, getting on a couple of nicer horses as well, that it probably people took notice of it, that I was after riding the winner in Cheltenham, on ITV Racing, and it was a big handicap, so I think that definitely helped, even getting nicer opportunities.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the amount of rides you've had this year, like, that's actually, in terms of the cold reality of building a career for yourself and making money, you're doing well, like, for a guy at a young age, and hopefully this could be the start of something big.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was, I didn't know what to expect, really, I suppose, because with the COVID and things, I didn't know, but Gary had said to me last year that even, like, before the national hunt came back, he got me loads of rides in the flat, and when the jumping came back, I suppose I'd great trainers, I've that had supported me when I was claiming, that had run loads of runners, and they gave me rides, so I'm very grateful to all of them.
And obviously you've told Henry and Rachel, you've had a conversation that with them having a horse that's so short for the Gold Cup, and the way that Absolute Tard finished at Leopardstown, he'll obviously won the Gold Cup, and you'll ride him.
Well, I'd be honoured to ride him, but I at the end of the day,
would he stay the trip?
I couldn't see why he couldn't. Like, if you think of it, if you added 2 furlongs on to Leopardstown the last day, you would have only said
it. And the pace they went.
And the pace they went, exactly. Like, I know people say that he tried 3 miles in Punchestown, but he was only a 4-year-old then, like, and he'd been to Cheltenham and stuff, so definitely I couldn't make any reason for him why he shouldn't stay the Gold Cup trip. He jumps really well, he relaxes in his races, and the pace that went the last day and the way he finished out his race, you'd think he'd only benefit from an extra couple of furlongs.
I think if I don't know if I owned the horse, I think that's the way I'd be going, because it is the Gold Cup, and as well as that, it does take a horse. I know it's a staying test, but jumping and getting into a rhythm, and you see 2 mile horses run so well in the race before, and I hope for your own sake, Darragh, that's the way it goes, because I think the ride that you had that horse at Leopardstown was just totally exceptional for a horse for a jockey of your age.
Yeah, look, obviously to be, as you said, the Gold Cup is the Gold Cup, and I've, as you said, talked about before, I've watched all the top jockeys compete in it and win it, and I dreamed of winning it, and to be great to take part in it, but there's a lot of water to go under the bridge between here and then, sorry. So we'll see what happens, but to be great to get an opportunity to ride in the race.
Yeah, well, listen, it was a sensational finish, and you must be very proud, and everybody associated with you and everybody who's helped you along the way must be really proud as well, because it is the start of an amazing career. We wish you all the best. Stay safe, Darragh. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, Darragh.
Thanks very much, lad.
It's Darragh O'Keefe there giving us some insight into, did I mention what Tom told me before we came on? When you think about the quality of the field, for the quality of the field to be so good, Johnny, and then the finish to be so spectacular, it's very rare that sport lives up to the hype.
Oh, no. And it was the one thing I would take away from the race was that Delta Work unseated, and Manella Indo fell, and Presenting Percy didn't run any sort of a race. So there were some horses there that you were like, they didn't perform. But when you take the fact that Mellon was essentially a 2 mile horse for much of his life, and he went sort of toe-to-toe for much of the race with Kenboy, who had previous in the race. For me, the ground looked like it had gone for Kenboy at that stage. He was really weak in the betting. These are things, whether you liked or not, that Darragh would have had to consider in the race, because if you don't know the form of the horses ahead of you, good jockeys know more than just the horse that they're getting up on and how to ride a race. They know the kind of the ins and outs of the horse ahead of them. And at the same time, you couldn't safely predict that either Mellon or Kenboy were going to stay, because it really was, as you mentioned, they went hard. So he's riding a horse that he was a straightforward ride in the sense that he jumps and he settles. But 3 miles, regardless of what you say, was a big question mark for a horse who, let's remember, had beaten Shack and Poursois over 2 miles. And 2 miles and 3 miles is like 100 metres in a marathon in some respects. It's a completely different ball game. So there were all these things for him to consider. And, I spoke to Gary Quibben before we came on air, and he was just glowing in his tributes for the mentality of Darragh, and I think that really shone through there, because it's very easy. If you look at Jack Kennedy at this stage, Jack Kennedy was a prodigy and all that, but he's had catastrophic injuries already in his career, and the amount of things that can go wrong. And I think Darragh has taken everything in his stride and realises that as much as he could be a champion jockey, he could be the best of his generation if things go well, things could also go wrong, and one grade one isn't going to make him a success overnight. And I think that's really testament to his parents, the way he's been brought up, because he's so grounded. And you can only imagine, Ger, what it was like. I mean, there wasn't a crowd in the race, but the race itself, to get up on the line, beating 3 Willie Mullins horses indeed, your first ride in a grade one, riding for Henry de Bromhead, as talented as a trainer as there is. And for Cheveley Park, with the best horses in training almost, it's complete dreamland, but you wouldn't necessarily get that impression that it changed them.
No, and we didn't even get into what it would have been like if there'd been a crowd there. And maybe it's a great way for this generation of young jockeys to have a period of time where there isn't the pressure of the crowds, where it feels different, and then you get into the winning habit in this, and then when the crowds come back, it's like, well, I mean, they're here, but it's actually no different, and I'm going to get the opportunity to strut my stuff. A reminder, Friday Night Racing is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. You did mention about the quality of the racing this coming weekend, Johnny. What should we be looking out for?
Oh, it's like the one that obviously sticks out a mile is Sunday's clash of, I don't know, is he the best horse that you don't really like to kind of build up horses, but Envoy Alain has done literally nothing wrong. And from his performance in Cheltenham and winning the bumper, when it kind of looked like he was going through the motions and just found an extra gear when challenged, beating a good horse that day, to his hurdling career, which was unbeaten. And then you were always like, well, he's going to be a chaser. And he has this kind of tendency in his races, if the jockey's going slightly easy and then gives a slight bit of a squeeze, all of a sudden it's just game over. And it's a strange one that his race is going to take place, the first race on Sunday. So it's the first race, which probably to do with just getting the best of the ground. It's heavy ground to punch down, but he's taken on Asterion Furlonge, who has a marked preference for going right-handed. Now, he fell at Limerick the last day, but I think the big thing here is, and this is something that I think punters disagree on, and horsemen and horsewomen disagree on, the relevance of weight, because he's 11.3. He's getting no less than 11 pounds off Envoy Allen, and 11 pounds in heavy ground is quite a lot. If you're going to run yourself and carry 11 pounds on your back, even for a horse, this is a lot of weight. And Gordon Elliott's horse were maybe a bit quiet over the Christmas, but to see these two horses taking each other on is like proper racing. The best horse possibly we've ever seen, or potentially the best horse of his generation, at least, taking on a really good Willie Mullins horse, Asterion Furlonge. That's the highlight. But we've quality novice racing as well. The real deal as well, you got to mention, he's running in the following race, which honours Moscow Flyer, sponsored by Sky Bet. This horse started off over hurdles off something like 84. He's gone up to 141. Biblical stuff, the achievements that he's made for Ronan McNally in a short space of time. And he's taken on Master McPhee, who's from the Corkery yard, wouldn't be from that far from where Darragh is from, in the heartland of National Hunt Racing in Cork. Two very small yards with proper prospects, and that's what we need in jumps racing. We definitely need the likes of the Mick Winters and the likes of Pat Corkery to have these horses, and it's a quality race as well.
Right, it is another week at the top for me, by the way, as I maintain my 2-point lead over you in our Tote 10 to follow competition for the...
I should interject there that I'm actually a close third in the racing TV table, so you're going really well. Like, I actually thought I was going well, and the fact that you're ahead of me, like I'm third of 35 or something with racing TV, two of the greats ahead of me, I can't remember who they are, but they're definitely great anyway. So the fact that you're ahead of me, Jared, this is good going.
Well, there you go. I mean, you sound unbelievably surprised. Like, none of the information that I've acquired over the last 2.5, 3 years has gone in by osmosis.
I am. I'm very surprised. I'm not going to lie. I have a lot of respect for you, but I have a lot of respect for myself as well. It's a long road ahead, though.
It is a long road ahead. So this is for the Irish Inter Jockeys Fund. With the Grade 1 entries coming out for the Dublin Racing Festival, the bonus points races, the Chanel Pharma Irish Champion Hurdle and the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup, they may play a big role in our two-man race. Visit tote.ie for the tote price guarantee on all Irish and UK racing. Right, anything else that you want to wrap up with ahead of the weekend?
I guess just to mention, a jockey, Colin O'Donoghue, who's gone through a very tough time over the last couple of years, and it looks like he's retired now, but his good name was definitely exonerated during the week. I think it's been very tough and called. Colin's a top jockey, and I'm sure everyone has read in the papers what happened, but I'd just like to mention him because he's gone completely off the radar over the last couple of years. I was talking today, he said he's gotten on with other things in life, and he's quite young, actually, Ger, in terms of, I think he's 40-odd, so in terms of being a national jockey, I wouldn't rule out his return. And I suppose other things in the news, Willie Mullins talking about a potential VAT issue as well with horses going over. So Brexit is becoming an issue. And I should mention as well, the racing at Fairyhouse tomorrow features the Dan Moore, which Darragh would have been riding in on Nick Winter's horse, Chatham Street Lad. That's at 2:15, honours Dan and Joan Moore. And it's a seriously good renewal with JP McManus having some very good horses. JP has had real personal tragedy himself of late. He's in our thoughts. He has Entucas and Front View and Top Moon. And the shunter for Paul Byrne and Emmett Mullins, who won at Cheltenham last time, he's been an amazing bit of improvement. So it's a great weekend's racing, and I think at a tough time for everyone, those of us who are healthy and are able to enjoy our sport, I think we're very privileged at the moment. It's a proper 2 days of racing.
All right, Johnny, good stuff. That's this week's edition of Friday Night Racing. We obviously broadcast live every Friday afternoon on all the OTB social channels. So that's on YouTube, on Facebook, on Periscope. And the best place to get us these days is on the OTB Sports app. And then if you miss that, you can always catch us on the radio at 8 o'clock every Friday evening on Off the Ball on News Talk. Friday Night Racing on Off the Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. We'll see you next week.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.